Enjoy a seat at the table and good company, where great conversations and meaningful discussions happen.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz. We all know a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people seated around the table engaging in lively discussions. And Good Company gives you the opportunity to watch as smart conversations happen. I am pleased to be in the company of Dan O'Connell, the President and CEO of Visit Fort Wayne.
Glad to be here, Sarah. Just glad to be here. Thanks.
So you actually have been the President and CEO for almost 33 years.
A real long run.
So were you instrumental in the creation of Visit Fort Wayne?
I would say the recreation of
Okay.
it. The Convention and Visitors Bureau for Fort Wayne and Allen County has been around since 1949. For a long time, it was an independent organization like the downtown districts and the Chamber of Commerce. And then it was folded into the Chamber of Commerce during the 70s when the community really had a hard time in their economy with loss of harvester.
Mm-hmm.
It was in there for 10 years, and then in 1988, I was brought in, and we were asked to kind of make it independent again. And so we grew the programming and the organization's funding, and that's when it became Visit Fort Wayne in 1992.
And what exactly does Visit Fort Wayne do?
As the official marketing arm for this destination, our goal is to attract more visitors so we grow our economy. And so we work in a couple of areas. One is we try to attract large groups like conventions and tournaments and sporting events and meetings and stuff like that into our large buildings like the Grand Wayne Center and the Memorial Coliseum, but also our sports venues, our hockey rinks, our hotels. So we're a sales force. We have 4 people on staff that work exclusively in that area. The second thing we do is we market the destination's assets as a thing to do, as a place to visit. So we promote the festivals, the children's zoo, the wonderful museums we do have here at the library, the genealogy center.
Right.
So marketing and sales is our primary assignment. And the third thing we do is we work closely with civic leaders, business leaders, elected officials to make Fort Wayne better. Better as a place to visit, better as a place to live. So when we're talking about riverfront development or building a new ballpark, or should we add the Bradley Hotel downtown, or how can we make Fort Wayne better, we're usually at the table for the conversation because whatever is good for residents is often good for visitors and vice versa.
Right.
What's good for visitors as an event,
Right.
as a function, as a
Right.
venue, as an exhibit, is often good for residents.
Right,
So
because-
that's our primary purpose, grow the economy by attracting visitors.
And I'm curious though, how has what you've done and what you do in your role over the past almost 33 years, how has it changed?
A couple of things have changed. One is being an upper Midwest major city, second largest in Indiana, very sizable. Our economy has been based on first agribusiness, and then it grew to manufacturing, and then a significant amount of retail, and that's as our destination's grown. We've seen in the last 30 years the value of being also a destination. I think we learned a lot from our state capital when Indianapolis decided to be the amateur sports capital of the world. They saw how that rejuvenated their downtown, how they were able to host visitors that not only spurred on the economy, but it got everybody around a cause of making our town better for visitors means it's better for us. Fort Wayne changed like that, I would say, in the mid-90s when we had decided that Fort Wayne's downtown could be better. We were, telling them, yes, it can be. We've built a convention center, but it could be larger. We could have more downtown hotels. We could start having these street fairs, have a festival park of their own, hence the creation of Headwaters Park. So I saw a change in civic leadership and business leadership who said, we want to be not just nice, we want to be an important player in the Midwest. And so how do we do that? And strategy has been, let's grow our destination's likability for both attracting talent and a workforce, but also visitors. So it's been a good symbiotic relationship.
So before we talk more, get into the weeds about the Visit Fort Wayne and strategies, I wanted to talk to you because, it's very rare that somebody has been with an organization that is not their own for the length of time you have. So I'm curious to learn, how do you stay relevant? How do you ensure that you keep, growing and evolving in the position? And what have you learned about leadership?
Well, Sarah, I think a couple of points are in there. One is it's important to stay on top of the industry trends if you're working in conventions and tourism. And I've seen a lot of changes there. The digital age has changed how we market a lot.
Right.
The competition for conventions is fierce. So you have to understand the ins and outs of the buildings, the dates, and really what groups who plan gatherings are really looking for. And so that has helped me stay ahead of the curve by listening to our customers and staying up on technology. Fortunately, there's a very strong professional development, professional education for people who do what I do and my staff do that helps champion tourism. So it's more than glad handing, it's more than being nice and handing out brochures. As I tell our elected officials and others, it's a business. We have to understand sales, marketing, service, customer service, finance, the proper distribution of our materials. It's all a competitive business, and that has helped us be good at what we do. I'm very proud of not so much my career, but the fact that Fort Wayne has had people come visit us because we're grown into a desirable destination. We've had invitations to talk at seminars and national conventions and say, how do you do that? And it isn't just me. It's Kristen, it's our sales force, Josie O'Donnell, it's a lot of different people. But it's taken a while. As you said, 30 years. Like I said, it wasn't until I would say the late 90s that the community said, yeah, I think we want to invest in tourism too. So we were able to raise some resources through funding with our hotel partners and our attraction partners. And today we're seen as pretty successful.
And what do you think, what have you learned about leadership and, leading an organization for this amount of time, and how to think about that in terms of the people you work with and leading them?
Well, in my position, I found for myself that you have to be willing to put yourself out there. I think everybody can do the day-to-day stuff pretty easily. But if you're willing to learn of a trend and then convey that, if you're willing to take some risks and be innovative, I think people start seeing it. That's how they know how to do this job, and they know how to do it well. The other thing I'd say, you got to generate results. As a leader, people are looking for you to produce. And I understand, you got to have motivate your employees and stuff like that. But we've booked, 10,000 person conventions that people thought would never come here. We've booked NCAA tournaments who thought they would never come here. We've hosted national conventions of Scrabble players and bell ringers and
jugglers.
And people are like, where do they come from?
Right.
And it's because we understand what their needs are.
Right.
We understand it's a good fit, and we're willing to try stuff. Savor Fort Wayne was one of the programs we started. Be a tourist in your hometown is another program. Those are things that we say, this will help our community understand what tourism and visitors value are.
Right.
That's why we do it.
So
So being innovative as a leader is important, to have new programs, new suggestions, new ideas, as well as doing the daily assignment of producing results.
And how do you sort of cope with the idea that you sort of serve many masters? Because you serve the visitors and tourists, you serve our civic leaders and the business community, and then you serve the residents in a sense with some of the programs, but also with getting them to understand and value the tourism and what visitors do for our community. So how do you juggle that?
Early on in my career, I started as an intern at a Chamber of Commerce. A very wonderful man named Glenn Carlson was my mentor. And he taught me early on that you must have a service attitude, a service directive in what you do. It isn't about you. It isn't about making money so much in this field, though that's part of it. It's, can you help people who have a need to find a location for their convention, who are visiting a town and want to do things? Can you help a hotel property, make some sales? And can you help your city get better? So I've always had a service attitude, and I think that's penetrated to my organization's core values, is we're here to serve, we're here to help, we're here to make things happen, but we're here as a service to you. Then we'll turn the keys over. I mean, it's not my community from a sense that I know how to run this place. I want to use my base to a power base. It's how can I help my community? How can I help my event planner? And we talk about that all the time in services. What do they need, and how can we deliver it in a fashion that's truly reflects Hoosier hospitality? It's above their expectations, and that has been what's proven to be a successful formula.
Now, obviously, the last year has been very difficult for the tourism and hospitality industry. And there was a tremendous loss. I think you pointed out that it was like $267 million that
Up
we
to 420 now.
lost. And but before the pandemic, you were really also on a really good trajectory path of really doing some innovative things, both for the visitors and the residents. So, like you launched the current.com, and then you did Current NEI, which was about events for Northeast Indiana.
Yep.
And those were designed to be both for visitors and residents to provide
we saw a need. You talked about earlier about being innovative and how can you help your community. And we saw a need that there wasn't a single calendar, one digital place or even a paper place where people could submit their events. We were maintaining a rather popular calendar off our website, Visit Fort Wayne, but it was directed toward visitors. So when there were local events that were really only interested in locals, I'm talking like park and recreation programs, United Way programs, a history lecture that's really talking about the history of Allen County, all sorts of programs, great programs run by organizations and people, but there was no one central depository. We learned that we could take our little calendar that's based on visitors' interests and make it available by access channels to other organizations to populate it. We could have one calendar, which we named The Current. And it now has grown to have over 40 organizations submitting data every week. It has, I think the last time we checked, 1,000 events on it in a month. So it's proven to be very helpful to the community to have one. And we've used our little marketing skills to try to get the word out about it.
And then you launched the one doing the same for all of Northeast Indiana.
We did it a little bit later, 6-8 months later, when Northeast Indiana said, this is really a good one, and we have the same headache. So we have now used the software, tweaked it to give access to populating a calendar with its own, what they call skin and look and web address for all of Northeast Indiana.
But I think that also demonstrates a lot of the collaboration that your group does, because I know that you talk to the visitors and convention visitors in the other counties and cities and that surround us, and trying to collaborate and create it. Also, the idea that people come to the area or the region, like with the Apple Trail or the Northeast Indiana Beer Trail, or some of the wineries. So you really do extend your work to recognize that people don't only come to Fort Wayne or Allen County, they come to also the region.
And that trend probably started in I would say, 2015, 2014, when regionalism really hit economic development. And so we formed a regional partnership, and we said 11 counties should need to work together, because if you're competing globally, they really don't want to know what the region's doing, not just your town or your.
And people want to come.
We found that to be the case in tourism too, is that you can expand your reach globally, at least here nationally, if you have offerings that take more in than just your town. And so that collaboration for the beer trail, the hiking and biking trail kind of spins into
Right.
the same
Right.
methodology of let's talk with our neighbors and do something that we both have in common. Now, we always wish government would do that a lot more,
Right.
and I think that's just the nature of the beast. But in the private sector and not-for-profit sector, it isn't the only thing we do, but it has found to be able to extend our message, extend our marketing, extend our relations.
And you really, so if we take a look at the last year and how you really were able to pivot and continue to use technology, and really were able to still do some meaningful things. So like you pivoted to focus on marketing the outdoor activities and things to do.
Yeah, exactly. When we were all shuttered and told to work from home, and a lot of our events were canceled. I mean, virtually all of them.
Right.
And our attractions were ordered to close, and so it became very difficult. We turned ourselves in more of a communication agency to our tourism partners and our community to just share what's all going on. And then when we started in the late summer of 20, we just said, well, we got to do something. That's when we started getting research that people want to do outdoor activities. So we pivoted, as you said, from promoting just indoor conventions and tournaments to outdoor family fun activities, and did an inventory of what we have in the region, and primarily in Allen County, and we were very surprised,
Yeah.
Sarah, very surprised of how many outdoor event activities are available. We had just opened Promenade Park. We have supersized trail system. We have events that are scheduled outdoor in some of our places where there's natural preserves. There are lakes in the region. There are events that the park department puts on specifically for recreation outside.
Right. There's also bird watching. There's
we were
photography. There's hiking groups.
We
and
were
there's
a
winter.
little
there's- yeah.
surprised, and hence
Yeah.
so we've cultivated an outdoor experience menu that we've actually wrapped into a new application called the Savings Pass.
Right.
And we're championing that because people now learn a lot about what they're seeing and do in a community off their mobile devices.
Right.
And so we've customized and tweaked all our messaging to talk about outdoor family fun, and it's available on your phone.
And the Savings Pass is also a way to get visitors to try different restaurants and activities. And
Right.
Right.
In one tool, you
Right.
get what visitors want. They want to do something. They're going to eat something.
Right.
And they're probably sometimes going to stay someplace.
Right.
So we have all that in one little package that allows all those properties often offer savings,
Right.
discount
Yeah.
packages. And with digital tools these days, we can update that every day.
Right.
And
And,
it's
then
very
you also
useful.
have used the digital tool. I told you before that I was very interested. I like this login Fort Wayne portal that you've created where your partners can put up very easily deals or specials or packages, or so you really also use technology behind the scenes as well to make it seamless for your partners.
Similar to the current calendar, where you enable people to populate your website or your mobile device with their own information. Their information gets to fall into a skin and a content that looks universal, looks
Right.
pretty simple. So our properties and our attractions, they're the ones doing the work. I don't have a girl at a desk doing this. They're putting in their own information, and like you indicated, people see that now they're being able to collaborate with Visit Fort Wayne and get their message out farther.
Right.
We're hearing from attractions and even stores who come to us later and say, I had 5 people walk into my store and they're from Cincinnati, and I don't even know how they got here.
Right.
Well, they saw your data
Right.
on our current and wanted to try your brewery or your particular restaurant. And we did that during Savor, and we've done that during the pandemic about carry out, and a lot of people saw a lot of new customers. Yeah, the digital age has probably been the biggest change, but it's also been the biggest asset to marketing our destination to new customers.
So now we're going to get a little bit into really the weeds. So you talk about that Fort Wayne is better because of tourism. How?
I think a couple of things. I would say, first of all, it's always been a clean, beautiful city. People have told us that who don't live here, who come in as new residents or here for a convention, said, your downtown's really, really clean. But we're a better destination because we've built some assets that are very exciting to them. Some of them have been here a long time. You don't understand that the convention center is one of the best in the nation. It really is. It's just the right size facility with attached hotels and all the service levels that are really exceptional, that make it a very good package when we talk to people. The Coliseum has gotten bigger a couple of times, and so it's gone from a hockey arena to now it's a multiplex.
Well, it really has. It's like an event center.
It's got a larger, better arena. It's got a conference center.
But it also has a smaller
exhibition hall.
center. Right.
It's got pockets for other things. And that supersized parking lot, I tell you, is really an asset to them for attracting groups who have large customers coming. And they have to have a place to put their cars.
So when you talk about that it enhances quality of life, because in the case of they're talking about building the soccer stadium, and then they're still talking about making a small arena downtown, or even with the Parkview Field. And what residents may not realize, that these things couldn't exist. We wouldn't have the state-of-the-art facilities we have if you didn't have visitors. There's no way that our population of 250,000 and then maybe 500,000 in the region could support them. So the visitors help for us to be able to have those types of facilities that benefits the residents and gives us that quality of place.
The examples I use to help convey that value to residents, not only the spending, which they get some taxes and their economy is stronger, it's that they get to use venues that are probably bigger in our weight class that we're fighting in.
Right.
Perfect example is we used to have the McMillan Ice Arena. It was on the south side of town, and it was getting a little old in one place. It was actually costing more to keep the old rink up because it was built in the 60s. And then they had another rink built in the 80s that was also starting to show somewhere. And we literally had meetings and conversations about, okay, so how do we improve this for our residents?
Right.
And we got into the table of conversation with Mayor Graham Richard and said, you want us to promote this ice arena as a tournament place, but it's got some shortcomings. And I'm not talking about old ice. There's no amenities nearby. There's no restaurants for people to do. It's in a neighborhood community. What if you built your new ice arena out north or out southwest, not to be closer to residents, but it's close to interstate highways, it's close to hotels, it's close to shopping centers. And here's a real crazy thought. What? Let's build a third rink in the same building. Well, would we have the demand to fill that? Would people? Yes, not only from residents' demand, which was out using the tube rink, but from visitors who have to get tournaments in a weekend. With 3 rinks, they can get so many games done in a Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, afternoon, night that they can't do with 2 rinks. Because when hockey tournaments were held, they would go to Michigan and some in Ohio, and they would use 5 rinks but spread in 4 or 5 cities.
Right.
A 3-rink ice demonstrated that tourism can grow for the benefit of locals because they have a new rink and new facilities, more ice time, and serves a tournament site. And that's a perfect example. We did that with the baseball team to a degree. It's a fine facility, but if you're going to build a new one, reposition it downtown, you'll have more people coming downtown. They'll be close to properties and hotels and dining and walking and the community's attractions. And I think that formula has been why Fort Wayne's a better place for visitors as well as residents, because they've identified if we build it really high quality.
Right.
And that's always our insistence, is make it really unique, make it very special, not just serving your current needs. And so the convention center, the Coliseum, the ice rink, the ballpark, a lot of times, Headwaters Park, it's forgotten because it's our park. It was built so we could consolidate festivals into one location, in a beautiful location on the riverfront.
Right.
So we've become a better destination over the years, Sarah, because we're seeing the value of attracting visitors. And it works for residents very, very well.
And it surprised me that we have 67 hotels, and then we have 10 that are including the Bradley, which is the new boutique hotel downtown, that there are 10 that are still or have recently been completed or will be
Yeah,
completed.
they're in the pipeline.
Right, and I'm like, do we fill all that?
Yeah, we have 65 properties, I think it is right now. We did have 10 in line before we had COVID.
Right.
And some of them have come online. Bradley opens up this August. We've
Right.
had 2 out north open up near the Parkview Health Regional Hospital have opened up. We have one that's going to be just opened up in the Southwest. So hotel industries have decided that Fort Wayne is a destination, and like we just talked about, they can serve the local community's needs and make money. But because we're hosting soccer tournaments and youth tournaments and lacrosse tournaments and NCAA championships, and we're getting to fill their weekends as too. So we talked to new properties saying they're busy on weekends because of our attraction ability. And they're busy during the week because the economy in Fort Wayne is pretty strong. It's a good place, Northeast Indiana. So that's why the growth is there. They're following the business growth and the tourism growth.
And I think that a lot of people would be surprised at the types of events and the partnerships, like that collaboration again. Like what you, I know that when we've talked in 2019, that was the time when you were going to get, because of the increase in the hotel innkeeper's tax, that was going to increase your budget. And so you had 3 areas that you were going to increase for marketing. And one was you were really going to focus on family friendly and for young families, about all that we have in Fort Wayne. You were also really going to focus on the alternate sports, and then the, I guess it's the special
it's called adaptive sports. It's athletes who have a disability, but they still compete.
Right, and you've been, and you were working with Turnstone on that, and then also you were going to work at really extending out the amount of tourism conferences and seminars and things that you go to generate awareness for Fort Wayne. But let's talk about this adaptive sports, because that's really been successful because of the fact that you really capitalized on something that was unique to truly the region and draws people on a basis just to come here for that, which is Turnstone. And because of the facilities and services that they offer to people who need special needs. But then you tapped into really working with them on saying we could really become a destination for tournaments for adaptive sports. So how did that happen, and what's come to fruition for that?
It happened this way. Mayor Henry issued a study to figure out where we were with amateur sports for his park department, because and some of our facilities.
And amateur sports are different than our minor league sports.
There's 3 levels. There's pro sports, and we have those wonderful at the minor league level. There's pro sports. There's collegiate sports, which is quite large too for University of Notre Dame and Purdue.
And then the fact that, and we benefited from that because we were going to have the NCAA Women's Division I regional, and we were going to have the NCAA Division III men's. But we're hoping that we will see those back for 2022,
Correct, 2022. One of them will coming back at least. The D3 men's championship will be here once again.
So that's the collegiate level.
So you got pro level, you got collegiate level, and then you can certainly locally, it's a lot of high school sports, and that's all good stuff, the great football nights, Friday nights. But there's this amateur level of sports that has emerged as another form of tourism called sports tourism, because people travel to compete. So travel to just sightsee.
The travel teams.
So the sightseeing, their kids are now on teams and are competing and driving around the region or the nation even to compete. To get mostly college scholarships, to be very good at their sport. And that emerging market has enabled us to be pretty good. So we had to study, analyze, well, why are we good at it and what makes it work? And what we found out through that study was not only did we have some well-positioned venues like the Ice House, which I just talked about, we're a very affordable destination, we're a very hospitable destination, so kind of what works for conventions will work for youth sports. And, but there's a lot of communities doing this. Rockford, Illinois, and Peoria, Illinois, and Grand Rapids, they're all chasing sports. What you might want to do is something unique. Turnstone just built a $14 million field house specifically designed for hosting adaptive athletes. And they're working to become a U.S. Paralympic training center, in fact.
I think they were approved.
Yeah, they have been approved since that study, and the study says, there aren't a lot of communities doing that.
Right.
And then, like other businesses, you have to offer something that's unique.
Right.
So we got with Turnstone, agreed, in part that we could be their marketing and sales force for them, but they would be the event host and organizer. Right. So how do we do this? So we started to host, their events started to grow, like ice hockey, sled hockey it's called. Right. They did some Paralympic wheelchair basketball. And then they got involved with the U.S. Olympic movement and became an Olympic training center and actually relocated the U.S. men's goalball team to our city.
And then also the judo Paralympics.
That's what got us into the game. We hosted a very large event called the U.S. Juniors. It's an adaptive sports with kind of like multi-field sports. And then that got us into a conversation to host an international event. So we hosted a qualifier, when you get it ready for the Olympics, we see how good your team is versus the world in judo and in goalball again. So long story just a little longer, is we found a championing Turnstone, marketing into places that didn't know we had a community and a venue like this, has turned into being a conversation that's really positioning Fort Wayne as the adaptive sports capital in the Midwest. And it's been very proven to be a success, not only grow the economy, but it helps position Turnstone as a leader in its own field.
Which it is, so it helps that. I mean, because they traditionally probably don't have the funds to necessarily market. So, I mean, they're, services, and this way you really
work together.
Extend it, right? And then, but, I mean, the idea is also, have you found like there's a specific, like the sweet spot for the types of programs or conferences? Like, because some of the events and things like you have is for competitions in brass bands, and then you did the one that's with the roller hockey state war championship, and then you also do some with baseball because we have the World Baseball Academy, and then you do there's a lot of dance, a lot of regional dance tournaments and cheerleading, and so have you found that there's like a certain sweet spot for the size of the type of event and the number of visitors and how many venues they need and how many games they can hold in a weekend that you feel is like, this is where we live and this is what we're going to really focus on? There
are. Let's talk about the two activity levels. One's our meetings and conventions, the other's sports. In the meetings and convention area, we do really well with the groups that are about 800 to 1,000 people, because that's the room inventory around the convention center. That's the 50,000 square foot meeting hall that can take a big banquet and then yet break out into learning sessions during the next couple of days. So that has fit very well for that size group. The second thing we find is, a lot of people who are paying the fee to participate in that convention out of their own pocket, they really like Fort Wayne. It's affordable. They're getting beautiful facilities to do their meetings and functions at. So we find we get a lot of what we call collector groups, or people who are paying out of their own pocket, the Scrabble players, the handbell ringers, the fishing lure collectors are coming this year. It's people who have a hobby or an activity they like to do.
Like the jugglers?
Like the juggler. They do themselves. It isn't their company paying the bill for their rooms. Right. It isn't a professional requirement to get their insurance creds or their law creds. Right. We have meetings related to those professions and societies, but the conventions we usually get are these collector groups.
They're like hobbyist enthusiast groups.
Volunteer groups. They're volunteering because they want to share their fishing lures or talk about singing. The Rotary Club talks about service levels. They have a volunteer or a collection that they want to share and talk with their colleagues about. And it's very exciting. They're fun people. They're just like you and I, and they just have a hobby or a craft. They just are very
enthusiastic.
Quilters group was here, a national quilt, a national organ players group. There's just a lot of fun. So those we find out our affordability and that package work really well.
So you really go, that's where you direct to pursue.
That's who we look for.
But you also were really innovative in sort of looking at something that we had and we're known for, but then really marketing it to those enthusiasts and groups, and that would really be the genealogy center.
Yeah, we call that our niche market, Sarah. What do we have that nobody else has nationally? And we find 3 we have that nobody else has. Very few people have turnstones.
Right. Okay.
Like there's 7 in the nation that are like that.
Right.
So we chase adaptive sports because we have a turnstone. We chase genealogy, genealogist meetings, genealogy lectures, because we have not only the second largest collection that people talk about, we have the best genealogy library in the nation. We have visited Salt Lake City. It is a little more cumbersome to get your records. They don't have that Hoosier hospitality experience. It's in a big complex. Henceforth, people find this more user-friendly.
Right.
So we chase genealogy
and
all
plus
the
they
time.
can prepare, like if they know that a certain group or a certain group that has the same last name, and they're coming, or from a certain region, then Kurt and his team can sort of prep and pull and do things and create programming during that weekend.
Exactly.
That really would be.
And there they also have the service levels are exceptional here.
Right.
Your experience in going to a library. You go into a library and you ask the librarian, okay, I need to find this book for my studies or my work or this author I like. That librarian steps up, helps you use the machines, finds it, and gets you the book. That happens in genealogy.
Right.
The department people walk in and says, my name's O'Connell, I want some Irish stuff.
Well, they actually have.
Let me get with you.
Right. Well, on Kurt's staff, he actually has certain specialties, and one of them is Irish, one is German for ancestry because of the nature.
And you may not find that at Salt Lake City.
Right. But that was again another collaborative. But that was also you as Visit for Rain seeing that people were coming on their own for this, that there would be a way then that you could market that and create groups and sell a group coming for a weekend
in concert
program.
with the library's genealogy department, who wanted to have more guests, who wanted to be more visitors, who saw the value of returning to their Allen County citizens, economy growth, because they've helped support the library. There were reasons behind what we do, but it's always in collaboration with somebody else.
And what was the third? So
the third is family experiences. You mentioned it earlier.
Right.
We've had studies done of what works for us, and they've come back and said, everybody talks about they're a good place for family fun. Now, it's hard to market yourself. You've got it in spades.
Right.
I mean, your children's zoo, your largest event center, is an attraction for families to experience, zoos and exhibitry. And it's the same thing with your McMillan Center is about children.
Right.
And your community schools is about outreach for children. And every park's built for children. And now you're building a major park in the riverfront. It's about children activities.
Right. And then you also have, I was surprised to see that
Fame is all about children.
Right. But we have a roller skating rink.
Yep.
We have crazy pins. We have lots of those other things. So after the day of activity, there's somewhere else you could take your kids for the night, or
that's why just this week, Sarah, we were listed in USA Today as one of the 6 best places to visit with families. That's the reach we're getting and the reputation we're getting because we're promoting that we are, but really, the proof is in the pudding. The families who come are the ones through word of mouth telling it, this really worked. We were a little surprised.
Right.
They had a fun town. We did a lot of things. It was very affordable. It works. That's what genealogists say. That's what turnstones athletes say. So we're getting the synergy of working with these unique venues in our destination in general if we position them in a niche markets that they're excelling at.
So in 2019, because of the innkeeper's tax rate, you were able to see a significant increase in your overall annual budget.
Right. Our budget was about just a little bit under $2 million, and we were able to jump it up to $2.5 million, about $700,000 increase, because the hotel industry are the ones who agreed with us that we'll raise our tax on us, which is really their customers. But we're willing to do that because you're producing results.
Right. So because of what's happened in the last year, it's sort of hard because when we're starting to come back or when we're in this pandemic, they need the marketing more, and probably budgets have gotten cut. So how much have you seen the significant hit to your budget for is it for 2021, or will it really be, because I think for tax purposes, it's like we won't really see some of it till the 2022.
Yeah, we work on we get our tax receipts every month, but we really work on an annual basis. So 20 crippled the travel and tourism industry all across the nation.
Right.
But in Fort Wayne, we lost $429 million in visitor spending. We usually get about 700, so over half of our visitors, because events were canceled and the hotels were empty, and
Right.
Secondly, people just weren't traveling.
Right.
And henceforth, we didn't do a lot of marketing. We cut back on the marketing, but we were even talking to ourselves. It didn't work.
Right.
Coming out of the pandemic, we're low on revenues. We've lost 45% of our revenues have been gone
Okay.
from taxes not being collected because they don't have them. People aren't
Right.
in the rooms. And advertising was hard to get to. So long story short, we have a smaller budget to work with, but we're looking at PPP loans. We're looking at new grants that are coming out with this American Rescue Plan. They'll help us promote our destination and our events, as long as we're kind of conveying also that we're trying to help COVID relief
Right.
for that tourism industry. So we see some opportunities to get some more funding in the future through grants, but it's to sustain us to get our feet, get back
Right.
on our feet.
And I think that people would be really surprised. So out of the usual 741 million that visitors contribute to the economy, that 94 million of that goes into from local tax revenue, goes into like a general fund that helps to build the downtown, or and so we're going to see that as a hit too, right?
Yes, not so much the stopping of those projects, but they were paused,
Right.
certainly, but those are still going forward. But that's one of the real benefits to residents that they may not see as immediately, is that they pay sales taxes.
Right.
Just about at every turn, at the hotels, at the places that they eat, the admissions they go to,
Right.
When they buy tickets to certain events at the college, they pay taxes, and hence for that's new taxes coming into the coffers here that residents don't have to pay. And
Right.
if you quoted that number, it's $90 million a year.
And
It's
so-
a
so- but it-
sizable chunk.
But what we also have to understand as residents, that's going to affect us in terms of some of the services or growth, because we don't have that, because we didn't have
We didn't
that.
get it in 2020, right?
And then you talked, there's this in your annual report that 86 cents of every dollar spent by visitors in Allen County stays in Allen County. And you said that that's one of the highest. And I was curious if you meant it was the highest amount that we get, which is 86 cents, or was it that we get the highest amount that of staying in our county versus other counties?
It's one of the highest amounts in staying in our county, the percentage, 86%.
And how did we-
Because other destinations, you think of Miami, you think
Right.
of Florida, you think of California, they have more national companies. So companies like maybe a Hyatt, and it might be an entertainment chain. That money is then distributed throughout the whole company's chain throughout the world, out their companies. So it leaves the community. We have a lot of locally based community businesses providing services to the industry. Local owners of the hotels, like the Halls,
Right.
the Uso Hotel, and the two hotels downtown
In
are owned by
Sweetwater.
local owners, and when they run events and activities, the money stays. Most of the money stays
Okay.
here.
And so I also think that there was a little confusion recently about the increase in the potential of the food increase in the tax.
Yeah, there's always that confusion.
Right,
We've run
so-
into it before.
Right. So
There's 3 visitor taxes.
okay.
There's 3 taxes visitors pay.
Okay.
If you stay in a hotel room,
Right.
you
That's
pay
the
what they call an
innkeeper's.
innkeeper's tax. And
Okay.
those are the resources that I draw down on. But they also pay for the convention center.
Right.
The Grand Wayne
And
Center is
that's
not on
when
the tax
in
rolls.
2019 we increased
Yeah.
that. It was
Right.
like a 0.5%,
Right.
went to 8%. I
Then
think.
there's a second tax that
Okay.
visitors pay, but so do residents.
Okay,
that's the
what,
food and
that's
beverage
what I
tax.
wanted to understand, because
Food and beverage tax, when you eat out and you pay that that 1% more, that's the one that residents and visitors both pay, and that goes into a pool of money that is controlled by a thing called the Capital Improvement Board.
Okay.
It's a government affiliated organization that must use those funds to help economic development and must use those only on capital projects. capital meaning what are you going to build?
Right.
So it has helped build a convention center
Right.
years ago. I'm sorry,
The
Memorial
park,
Coliseum.
the Coliseum. Okay.
And it has helped build other projects
Right.
like the Ash Center downtown. It helped build, they've got a big investment coming up with the electric works.
Right.
So that money is being used more than just tourism. So
Okay.
that's two, hotels, tax, innkeepers.
And what would you say? What
The
percentage?
third one's the sales tax,
Okay.
which goes in the general
but we all
fund.
pay that, but we get just a percentage of that from the state.
The
back.
state collects
Right.
it and sends it
But
back.
what percentage of the food and beverage tax would you say comes from visitors versus residents?
The last time we looked in that was in 2010, and it's really hard to digest because your properties that collect the food and beverage tax don't know. You bought it.
Right.
Were you
right.
from
That's true.
Cincinnati
Right.
or were you from
Right.
Fort Wayne? They don't know. But the researchers and analysts tell us 34%. 34% of Allen County's food and beverage tax probably comes from visitors.
Okay.
They extrapolate that number based on what typically visitors spend in a city our size, our tourism numbers that they look at. 34% is what we hear.
Okay. So can you explain then what was the controversy or issue that was presented to possibly have the possibility of raising it, or did they want to raise it? And I don't think that people understand how much they wanted to raise it and what was the thinking behind that.
Yeah, I can. When the legislature meets, everybody, grabs their wallet. But the legislature was looking at raising the food and beverage tax or initiating a food and beverage tax in 2 other counties in the state of Indiana. And Mayor Henry asked our legislators, said, well, wait a second, if they're going to pass that bill, could we get a 1% increase in our 1% tax to 2%? Investigate that for us. And that's when it went public, and a lot of people say, hey, we don't like that idea. Well, there wasn't really a plan of what the money would be used for.
Right.
There wasn't really a survey of whether it was
And when you're talking
wanted.
about 2%, it's really not, it's pennies on the
It's
dollar.
not that much, but it certainly is a tax
Right.
increase.
Right.
And what you heard, I think, in a lot of feedback was, hey, if you want us, the mayor's talking, if you want us to do electric works, you want us to do more in a riverfront like phase 2 and 3, you want us to build, a soccer stadium, you want the North River developed, that's going to take public investment that matches the private sector.
Right.
And we're kind of tapped out. Electric Works has taken a lot of public funds. We've already did the river. If you want us to do even more than we have, we're going to need more resources. That's exactly what Mayor Henry said. And this train is moving at the legislature. Maybe
Right.
we want to tap onto that
Right.
train.
Right.
Well, it got a lot of pushback, but it's a topic we have to really visit as a community.
Right.
If you want this growth, this
Somebody has to pay for it.
expansion on the riverfront, you want even more and more and more of everything more, public sector is going to need more resources. And sometimes the food and beverage tax, since it is paid by visitors as well, is a little easier to swallow than an increase in the property taxes.
Right. Well, if you figure that 35%
Bonds,
of that.
yeah, they don't want the government to go, our local government go into debt and sell bonds and
Right.
have these big IOUs for our grandchildren. So it's a method of investigating, but I think it'll get a lot of discussion in the next, 6 to 12 months.
Well, I think that maybe they didn't do enough marketing and education to the consumer prior to it being
You
presented
make a good point.
to the legislature, because I think everybody just was sort of spread, and also the timing of it. Like, people don't understand that we're not going to see the hit of 2020, all these taxes and limits. It's not 2021's budget. It's 2022 where we're going to see the services hits. And so people don't understand that they weren't talking about doing it now. It needs to, but putting it in place. But I think another area that is important, especially to look at when you look at our tourism and hospitality, is the workforce, because those workers were very hard hit during the pandemic, and a lot of them, lost their jobs, and so and then there was some efforts, I think, to help them, in terms of with
some, recovery loans,
Right,
yeah,
right.
and that are forgivable
Right.
grants, really, what they're given. Yeah, we lost a lot of employment.
Right.
People lost a lot of wages. They lost a lot of earnings for their families.
Right.
It was devastating. We've
And
had
it's-
3 hotels close. We have a dozen restaurants close, have not opened.
Right.
Only one of those hotels were really shuttered for a while, and they're back open again. But 2 have closed and they haven't opened up yet. And
Yeah.
one's never going to open up, the Hall's Guest House. They're not going
Right.
to open up.
No, they closed it.
Right. And
But-
so restaurants were really the hardest hit. And
But so were the hotel workers.
and the
I mean,
hotels
and the-
and the attractions,
Right.
the Children's Zoo,
Yeah, everybody
the
had a
Memorial
furlough.
Coliseum lost
Yeah.
$3+ million. The convention center still is pretty much empty. The fall calendar actually is pretty good because we hope everybody's vaccinated
Right.
and back to normal.
Right.
But we
We've
lost
had it.
many January and February events. That just said it's still too soon.
And it was an industry that's 14,000 people are employed by. And so is there a concern, though, that we're not going to have enough people to come back or, to fill the job when we need the people to offer the good
Yes.
service?
The answer is yes, Sarah. There was a lot of tight labor market when things were burning hot.
Right.
It didn't get any better when things went cold.
Right.
People got out of the industry. They just said, I can't depend on this check the next time around.
Right.
So we have lost a lot of employees in that area, in food service and in hotel service in particular. And they're good paying jobs. Some waitresses working in Club Soda and Hall's Guest House, they make a lot of money.
Right.
Not oodles like they went to college for and got a
Right,
degree,
but
they are making good money
Okay.
because they are earning wages, and if they're willing to put in the time, they'll earn a lot of wages.
But do you think that clearly with the innkeeper's tax and that it does generate a significant amount of revenue for the city, that maybe we should look at maybe increasing the wages of those workers or not making it so dependent on tips?
I think the marketplace will drive that. I've talked to property owners and restaurant owners who want to take care of their people,
Right.
but they have to balance that between making money and staying in business. There isn't a lot of markup and profit margin in the food service industry. People think it's, they own a restaurant, they're making money hand over fist.
No, it takes you
It's
about
8 to 12%.
Right.
It's just, you do $300,000 worth of money and you made 8%.
Right.
It's a difficult business to make money in. So I think the marketplace will drive those wages up because the need's there. If they want to stay in business, they're going to have employees.
and you have to have good employees
Absolutely.
because if you're in the service business,
Right.
people want service.
It's different in the fast food levels.
Right. That's
That's
different.
just a
Right.
completely different animal.
But even within the hotels, for their housekeeping staff and their, I know that like the Hilton downtown restaurant wasn't open, and
Yep.
so I mean you need those people to come back for the services.
Yep. The market will drive that.
So you had a strategic plan that went from 2014 to 2019. So have you set your new strategic plan?
We have.
And so give me some quick
We
highlights.
met in 2019 several times. Our board of directors comprised of 20 people from the community, some from the tourism industry, some from the civic community at large. And we analyzed what needs to be done in the next 4 or 5 years. And some of the tidbits of it is we need to work as a board and as an organization to really make our destination even better than it is. This is not the time to start the momentum. So we're watching closely projects like the Urban Trail, which is an improvement of certain streets through the heart of downtown. We're trying to champion the growth of Turnstone even more, and they're looking at getting some opportunities. And one of the other destination thing in that strategic plan is, how can we help more some of the issues of our town? Like what? We have a homeless issue in our
Right.
town, and that impacts your
Sure.
image if you're hosting visitors around the library, going to the
Sure.
park, if you're going to the convention
Yep.
center. Right now we have a very clean downtown and
Right.
but homelessness is growing.
Right.
How can Visit Fort Wayne help in that regard?
And also,
too?
I think helping with the neighborhoods, because when people go to a city, two things that they want to do other than why they're there, is they want to get out and experience different neighborhoods and experience local food and shopping.
They do.
So-
They want insider information.
Right.
They want locals. What are the locals doing?
Right.
We constantly try to champion that. In fact, when we run Savor Fort Wayne, it's one of our highest hit website links is to local restaurants,
Right.
not chains.
Right, because people wanted that. So I think that could be also a big thing going forward, because it's to celebrate the diversity of our neighborhoods and getting people to embrace going to them and experiencing them for that.
You know, we're the Visitors Bureau, and so we're very conscious of the needs of visitors.
Right,
Our client is residents.
right,
That's who we work for. That's who we represent. So the concerns of residents of how to be sure that their homes are safe, how to be sure their downtown is clean, how to be sure we're solving some of this, addressing some of the community issues of Black Lives Matter,
Right.
of homelessness. Those are important to us too.
right.
So that we can improve those, means improve our destination, not just prettier blocks and nicer parks and bigger buildings, but as a value. How are we living, and how is that helping treat
Right.
visitors?
And it's also what
We just present that to
right.
visitors.
And what else people have to realize is that getting people to want to move here and become residents here, as you say, it always has to start with a visit.
It does.
So, you know, that
Our visitor center sees hundreds of people a week. 20% of them are people who are considering or have recently moved to town. We were very surprised of how high that number is. But they know they're visitors. They're going to become residents.
Right.
So what can we do here to make us like being residents?
Right.
Or what does my husband want, taking a job here? Why would we come here?
Right.
We get that question a lot, Sarah.
So everybody has to realize that everything really does start
It's
with a
workforce
visit.
development, it's neighborhood development,
Right.
it's
And it all starts with that first visit and that
first visit.
impression. So at the end of each And Good Company program, I ask guests the same 12 questions that were popularized by French novelist Marcel Proust
Oh, okay.
from a Victorian parlor game. What is your favorite word?
New.
What is your least favorite word?
Won't.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
That's a tough one. A new project. I get really excited about starting and initiating things, but sometimes I've been told this, okay, then let somebody else run it.
Right. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Sometimes I think I find that if people just don't listen, they have a set mind the way something has to be, and they just don't listen. We find that sometimes in working in the public sector that there's not a lot of attitude toward change, and I think we're all about change.
Right. What sound or noise do you love?
Pardon me?
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, I like listening to my grandkids. They're funny people.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Too loud of television.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
That's a good one. I always thought I wanted to be in advertising, so I kind of ended up in community development that uses advertising. But I've always liked the creativity of an advertising agency.
What profession would you not like to do?
Medical. I faint at the sight of blood.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Boy, over 30 years, growing Visit Fort Wayne. When I first started, Sarah, it had a $30,000 budget.
Wow.
We're now
And now it's
closing in on $3 million.
That's great. Who, living or dead, would you most like to have a conversation with?
Living would be Peyton Manning. I've always been impressed with his professionalism, but also his tie to families while he does a really difficult job. Yeah, I've always been impressed with Peyton Manning.
How would you like to die?
Oh, that has two answers.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
The first one was when they talk about, you see these movies about the end of the world and there's either a contagion or a nuclear event. I've always giggled and thought, I want to be the first to go.
Okay.
I'm not going to be the person lasting out when everything is gone and everything. I want to be one of the first to go.
Okay.
So
And
that's
if there's
that.
not a catastrophic
Right. If
event
there's a
to take you
catastrophic
out.
thing, sign me up. And it was
Right.
like when this coronavirus was going on, do you really believe that, Dad? Because
Right.
guess I don't. Because the second answer is I think about diet like everybody does with my family and friends around me.
And if heaven exists,
It does.
what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Thank
and
you.
we like that to know that you are welcoming our visitors to
Thank
our
you.
community. So thank you very much.
I enjoy it. It's really been a fabulous career.
Great. Well, you can learn more about And Good Company and all the other great conversations we have had at andgoodcompany.info. And we look forward to next week when you can again enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.